Good evening. My name is Anita Rockefeller, and on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Kitsap, I want to welcome you to the Bainbridge Island Virtual Forum for City Council primary races. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that doesn't support or oppose political parties or candidates. After careful study and consensus by our members, the League does take positions on issues, and we take action on those positions at the local, state, and national level. The League is a membership organization and depends upon our members to organize and run events such as this. We invite and encourage all people 16 and over to become members and help us work on our basic belief that our form of government depends upon the informed and active participation of its citizens. Tonight's forum is being recorded by both the League and Bremerton Kitsap Access TV and will be available for later viewing. The candidates participating tonight are running for the North and Central wards for the Bainbridge City Council. For the Central Ward, District 5 position, the candidates are Joe Deets, Rasham Nassar, Sal DeRosalia, and Clarence Moriwaki. For the North Ward, District 7 position, the candidates are Joe Deets, Dennis Miller, Lisa Mandelkorn, and Ron Peltier. Regrettably, Mr. Murawaki is unable to participate this evening. He has medical power of attorney responsibilities for a critically ill friend and is currently with him in an Everett hospital. I have been asked to read both his opening and closing statements, which I will do at the designated times for him. We had many excellent questions submitted by the public, but could not include all of them for this evening. Hopefully, the forum will be helpful to you in your efforts to learn about each of the candidates. The format for this evening's forum is as follows. Each candidate will be given 1.5 minutes to make an opening statement. These will be in the order the names appear on the ballot, with the Central Ward first. After all candidates have given their opening remarks, I will ask the same questions of each candidate. The order of response for the questions will be rotated. All candidates will have 1 minute to respond to each question. At the end of the questioning, each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to make a closing statement with the North Ward first. Candidates, please keep an eye on the digital timer. If time expires before you finish speaking, please finish your sentence and yield the floor. Each of you has our thanks for stepping up and running for elected office. Please be respectful of each other. Address your remarks to me as the moderator. Answer the questions from your perspective, not commenting on others' remarks. Remember, this is not a debate. Of course, please refrain from personal attacks. Let's get started with opening remarks, starting with the Central Ward, Rasham Nassar to begin.
Hello, good evening. Such a pleasure to be here. Nice to see everyone tonight. My name is Rasham Nassar, and I've been serving on the City Council of Bainbridge Island since 2018. This year, I was elected by my council colleagues to serve as mayor. My campaign platform can be boiled down to one simple point. I am an effective leader with a proven record of advocating for our island environment. I'm an active leader as opposed to a passive leader. Passive leaders often are unwilling to consistently defend our community values. Instead of pushing legislation and standing up to policies and proposals that threaten our island, passive leaders often yield to development pressures and vote to avoid criticism from special interest groups. Those that have worked with me and witnessed my success on the council know that I am the opposite of that. I am an active leader. My voting record shows that I have consistently voted for progressive land use policies that preserve our rural island character, aquifers, and quality of life. I've also sponsored and co-sponsored numerous legislative proposals that achieved the same. As I've been engaged, active, vocal, and hard at work during these last 3.5 years, I want to continue to serve on the council to follow through on the commitment I made to you all in 2017 to be the change we need. I want to rebuild an inclusive local government with a healthy municipal legislative structure to thwart development pressures and achieve our goals of sustainability. To do that, we need to elect active leaders to the city council. And I am just that. I'm not focused on regional or national issues. I'm not endorsed by major political players. I am grassroots. I am a Bainbridge.
I'm sorry, your time is up.
Thank you very
You have
much.
the floor. Thank you. Next, we'd like to hear from Sal DeRosalia.
Hello, is my mic on?
Yes.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Sal DeRosalia, and I'm running to become the next elected city council member for Bainbridge Island Central Ward District 5. I was born in, tonight I want to use my time to tell you who I've been in my community and what I think. I was born in New York City in 1979 to Anna and John DeRosalia. I moved upstate to Kingston, New York when I was 12, and I stayed there to help a friend move. And I've been here since, and I moved to Bainbridge when I was 21 and stayed till now. Since then, I've been here. Clearly, I'm reading this wrong. A large portion of my experience comes from Bainbridge Island. I have done things such as serving my community for 7 years, free of charge as a volunteer firefighter and EMT. I've sat on boards and contributed to wonderful organizations like Bainbridge Youth Services and Living Arts Cultural Heritage, a 501c3 I helped found with local volunteer and activist Karen Vargas. Along with being a volunteer, I've owned and operated small businesses here on Bainbridge for 20 years. I'm proud to say these companies all hired local staff, provided wonderful services, and gave back to the community through fundraisers, free memberships, products, food drives with Helpline House. My top 5 concerns and priorities are fulfilling the comprehensive plan, transparency in city government, diversity, equity, inclusion in our city and also in our city government, housing, especially affordable housing, and a strong, stable small business community. I believe I have a unique skill set that prepares me to represent the Central Ward and serve the entire island.
Thank you very much. Right on time. I'm going to read the statement that Mr. Murawaki gave me today. Thank you, League of Women Voters, for hosting this forum. This has been an excruciating decision, but I regret that I am not able to participate in person. I've been staying 24 hours a day with my terminally ill friend, Jack Ahrens, in Everett's Providence Hospital. I promised that I would be with him at this crucial time, and keeping that promise must take precedence over my political campaign events. I believe that a community is defined and made richer by social, economic, religious, and racial diversity. I believe that we must ensure that the pressures of growth are carefully balanced with a quality of life that we all enjoy. I have worked toward that end in my prior public service. As a Tukwila City Council member in 1990, I advocated and passed the first sensitive areas ordinance protecting the environment from intrusive development. Above all else, I believe that people want and deserve a responsive, responsible, and predictable city government, one that's grounded in transparency, honesty, and civility. For over 30 years, government and civic public service opportunities have come to me because I know how to respectfully work with people with divergent points of view. I know how to get along with people, and I know how to get things done. I now wish to serve you as the next city council member. You can learn more at www.clarenceforbainbridge.us. Thank you. Now let's move to the North Ward. Joe Deets to begin.
Thank you. Thank you, League of Women Voters. It's wonderful to be here. My name is Joe Deets. I'm running for re-election to the North Ward, and I'm doing so with humility, with optimism, and purpose. It has been my privilege to represent all Islanders for the last 3+ years, and I'm ready to continue my service to you for another term. For I love Bainbridge Island. Its natural environment and strong sense of community make it a wonderful place to live, go to work, go to school, raise a family, and retire. However, climate change events The pandemic and a shifting economy have exposed our vulnerabilities. It is essential, I believe, that we strengthen our resiliency and work together to become a more environmentally sound, economically viable, and socially equitable community. To achieve those ends, my focus is on 3 priorities, which is climate, recovery, and equity. For climate, the city passed its ambitious climate action plan last year. Now the hard part, implementation, begins. In recovery, our local businesses and frontline workers face enormous challenges while providing essential services during COVID. Things are thankfully starting to look up, but fractures on our local economy remain. For equity, we've made strides in greater diversity in our city representative functions. Attention to this must continue, and we absolutely must address the shortage that exists in affordable housing. I'm looking forward to tonight's forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Deets. Mr. Miller?
Good to be here. I'm Dennis Miller. I've considered running for the council many times before. So those weren't the right times, now is. So I'd like to roll back to May, the last day to file. I was sitting at my computer, opening the auditor's page to declare my candidacy. I was excited and I was ready. But I had some of those thoughts we all have. I know I'm ready for this responsibility, but will anyone vote for me? I'm ready to work on the issues and the challenges and to help find the solutions. But can I convince the community of that? I know I'll be good at this job, but will anybody vote for me? Some of those thoughts we have when we're trying to make a decision on something that's important. While I was thinking about that and at the screen, I remembered something that Julie shared with a family in a conversation years ago. She had learned this or talked to a friend about it, and the friend had shared it with her. It's sort of a thought that we all know and something we all probably keep in mind, just do intuitively, but it's good to remember it once in a while. Julie's friend said, to have an interesting life, it seems you have to make interesting choices. I'm confident now is the right time for me to make the interesting choice to run for city council. So here I am again, sitting at the screen, only this time there's people staring back at me. And I'm wondering now what interesting questions I'll have and what interesting answers I might make. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Mandelkorn, your turn.
Thank you so much. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for the opportunity to speak to the electorate. It's such a gift for all of us. I am a Northwest native, born and bred. I grew up on Mercer Island. And the reason that my husband and I decided to settle on Bainbridge Island when I moved back here 10 years ago is because it's very similar here to the way that Mercer Island was when I was growing up. So unfortunately, Mercer Island, although they had the opportunity to pass a green belt when I was a child, did not do so. And so the island has changed drastically due to overdevelopment. It's really unrecognizable at this point and not at all quaint and adorable the way that it was when I was a kid. So as I've moved to Bainbridge Island, I do see some trends that are heading in that direction, and that concerns me because I moved here to be in a beautiful and small town feeling community with a lot of protections for the environment. So that is what I will be heading towards if I'm elected. I will always be viewing every decision through the lens of protecting our environment, particularly our aquifer and our small town way of life. Additionally, transparency in government. And to me, that means you gather the information from the people and you think about what they need and want, you come up with solutions, and then you get that information back to the people. That step to me is kind of missing a little bit. So I can talk more about that later. But that would be a huge issue for me. And third, and unique to me perhaps, is securing investment to the arts, which is my love, my first love. I am a performer, I'm Mary Poppins. So
Lisa.
That would be my third thing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we'll begin the questions for each of you.
Wait, Ron Peltier.
Oh, I'm sorry. Apologies. Turned my page too quickly. Ron, we'd like to hear from you.
Thanks a lot. Good evening, Bainbridge Island, League of Women Voters. I'm running for city council because I'm concerned about the future of Bainbridge Island. And I know I can make a difference for the good. I've done it before, advocating for a groundwater management plan on Bainbridge Island as a citizen and then as a member of the city council. I was intimately involved in creating new protection for trees and native vegetation and sponsored building moratorium that resulted in significant changes to how we approve development on Bainbridge Island. I helped write and then sponsored Indigenous Peoples Day, beginning a serious discussion about race at the city of Bainbridge Island. I opposed wasteful spending. There's another important reason why I'm running for city council. The campaign season is an opportunity to be part of a community discussion about important issues impacting our quality of life. Tonight's forum will give you a further glimpse into how the candidates think and what our positions are. I encourage you to follow up by asking candidates to clarify their positions and weigh in on issues not discussed. As a candidate, I look forward to that, and we'll be having Zoom meetings open to all where you can ask me questions. To see my city council record and my 2021 platform, please click on my campaign website at peltierforcouncil.com using the number 4. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My apology for that earlier goof.
Okay.
So now to questions for each of you. We'll begin with Rasham, and again, we're going in the order of the ballot, and we'll be alternating that as we go along. So the first question, what is your priority issue for council attention, and what specific actions would you take or advocate to address it?
Well, my top priority for council action is environmental protection. Since being on the council, as I said, I've been really active in supporting and sponsoring legislation that protects and defends our island, its rural character, and our environment. One of the things I helped advocate for was the inclusion of funding in our 2018 biennial budget for a groundwater management plan. We haven't yet started the work on the groundwater management plan. That's a definite priority for me. Generally, I think the council needs to review our land use codes to find ways where we can tighten it up to make sure that developments like the Winslow Hotel, for example, don't happen again in the future. That's something that I'm specifically interested in and really knowledgeable about. So my priority focus on the council is just that. It's defending our island against the threat of overdevelopment and development that is consistently or has been repeatedly out of line with the character of rural Bainbridge Island.
Thank you. Mr. DeRosalia.
Thank you. My top issue is housing and affordable housing. If I'm elected to the Bainbridge Island City Council, I would use my position and platform tirelessly to champion for housing and affordable housing of all kinds. To do this, I would coordinate and collaborate with stakeholders, experts, organizations, HRB for one, and bring the community in to figure out what we need to do next. Specifically, that means recommission the employee that we actually were supposed to have designated for affordable housing, and get that staff member working towards figuring out housing and affordable housing for the island. I would create a standing affordable housing committee so that we would not have to kind of figure this out every 10 years or 20 years. I'd use the data from the Affordable Housing Task Force combined with the newly released Status for Bainbridge Island Housing Report to assist in creating the badly needed housing action plan. And then I would go about implementing those things which have immediate and long-term solutions. So that's my major priority.
Thank you. Joe, your turn.
Okay, thank you. We only have to pick one for this question. So my number one would be climate change. You know, the horrid experience that we had with the heat dome late June demonstrated that climate change is affecting us not just for the future, but it's impacting us now. It is fortunate that the city had the foresight to create a climate action plan, a very ambitious program to significantly reduce our greenhouse gases and make us a more resilient community in terms of climate impacts. The climate action plan was approved late last year, and the hard part implementation begins. In my second term, I will utilize my expertise in renewable energy project development, my experience on council, and a broad range of people to deliver on the plan. Some projects that I'm currently involved in relating to the climate action plan. 8 seconds. Increase the numbers, reduce single-use plastics. Oh, sorry, time's up. Sorry.
That's okay. You were breaking up with your audio at that last 3 seconds, so I'm not sure if you can check your audio in some way. Next,
okay,
like to hear next from Mr. Miller.
Would you throw that question out one more time?
Of course. What is your priority issue for council attention, and what specific actions would you take or advocate to address it?
I'm not going to avoid this question, but we're pretty clear that everything we do is interconnected. And there is no one issue that we can just pull out and say, this is the most important. You know, I'm all about the environment and what we should do to protect it. But everything we do affects that environment, from our transportation to our housing, to what we do and everything in the city. So I'm going to pick an issue that's very important to me, and what it is the density we allow. We are overbuilding on our properties. We are allowing bonuses to developers so we can gain something on the other end. We allow developers to buy in bonuses. It's ridiculous. We have to control that and have smaller impact on our environment, both in what we do with density and what we do with allowing with housing and development. That'd be my primary issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mandelkorn?
Dennis, you stole my thunder. Density is
Sorry about that.
first.
We can do it better.
So density does pertain to almost everything. And when you look everything through the lens of how much density to allow, a lot of other things come up, including like how to protect the aquifer, which is also a huge priority, because as soon as there's a lot of people, everything's rolling into the sound and rolling off of the roads and everything. And allowing a lot of density really changes our way of life. It changes the way that our small town looks and feels, and it adds traffic, and it causes parking problems, and transportation issues become part of it. So it does all tie together. And the term affordable housing getting bandied about in order to create a feeling that we need to allow a lot of building is something that I also take issue with. We absolutely need affordable housing, but we always have to check and make sure we're actually getting that affordable housing, and not just allowing a lot of upzoning and tax breaks and everything for developers to create a lot of extra developments that don't serve that purpose.
Thank you very much. Mr. Peltier, your turn.
Thank you. My major issue is also growth. We're going to face more growth pressures as time goes on. And it's really important that we better determine the island's carrying capacity. The first step in doing that is our groundwater management plan. I advocated for that plan when I was a citizen, before I was on council as a community activist. I stood up at the workshops for the comp plan and said, we need a groundwater management plan for Bainbridge Island. And as a council member, I was able to make sure that was an action item in the comprehensive plan. So that's one of the first steps. We also need to look at our transportation system in regards to our carrying capacity. And we can't ignore affordable housing, because we're going to face regional and pressure from the state to have a plan for affordable housing. I have a plan at my website, peltierforcouncil.com. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, the second question for all of you. What county board or committee would you like to sit on? And what experience makes you a suitable Bainbridge representative to that? Let's begin with Mr. DeRosalia.
Sure. I want to be on the transportation committee, and I believe that it's because it affects every one of us, no matter what we do, so long as we have to get out of our house. So what prepares me to do that is I've served on boards in the past. I've worked with the city. I've worked with the county. I currently work with Kitsap County Health Department. So I don't know that anything would qualify me more. You know, I've not spent time on county boards before because I've not had that opportunity yet. But I've certainly spent more than enough time on boards. I believe I know how to conduct myself, represent the will of what Bainbridge Island and what its constituents want. And that's what I would hope to do, is just be a good advocate at those meetings, serve, and hopefully serve my community in the meantime.
Thank you. Mr. Deets?
Well, I'm an incumbent, so I'll mention the committee that I'm already on, which is the Kitsap Regional Coordinating Council, or KRCC. Why do I want to be on this? Is because this is the fundamental regional committee that looks at land use and transportation. We recently just were reviewing the countywide planning policy. This is a countywide document that addresses, again, land use and transportation, and some recent amendments that we just incorporated related to climate change and equity. We just last July 5th, we reviewed the draft document, and I frankly took issue with some of the language and asked for more stronger language relating to climate change, more stronger language regarding displacement, and for economic diversity. So I intend to stay on this committee because it's a linchpin between the countywide policies and Bainbridge Island. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Miller, your turn.
Well, I'll be honest, I don't know what committees exist for the county. I know we have a lot of issues and a lot of important things that are part of the Growth Management Act and Comprehensive Plan. And I know that land use is a very important issue in that regard. And it's one of the things we have to focus on a lot and develop. So if there's a county commission that's on the land use, both for Bainbridge, both for the county, both for how that affects the environment and how it affects our growth and the growth of the county that we're mandated to plan for, that's a committee I would like to be on, land use. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mandelkorn?
Hi. Thank you for asking that question. I think there are so many committees that we're going to have to be involved with. I think I'll want to be a liaison to many. Some that come to mind are the Kitsap Public Health Committee and the Planning Commission. And I also agree that there is a lot to be done with transportation. Most of the topics that I look into end up having to do with transportation in some way down the road. So if you're talking about density, you're getting into transportation. If you're talking about the aquifer and protecting it, you're getting into how do we get things to not roll in off the road and into the aquifer or into the sound. And there's just a ton of topics that end up leading back to transportation. So I'm certain I'll want to be involved in that as well. And if there is a commission for the arts, if there isn't, I'm going to start one. And if there is, I would love to be involved in that, bringing in some, maybe possibly like a Glimmerglass or a Tanglewood feeling type of summer festival would be something I would love to invest in for our community, bring in that kind of tourism and extra loveliness for us to have in the summer.
Thank you. Mr. Peltier?
Thank you. When I'm elected to council, I would probably want to be appointed to the KRCC Executive Committee because that's where the action is there. They make final decisions for the recommendations and decisions for the KRCC. One of the issues we have in Kitsap County is that Kitsap County as a whole is out of touch with the issues that are important on Bainbridge Island. As a representative of the Puget Sound Regional Council Growth Management Policy Board, I proposed policies that would have required jurisdictions to upgrade their sewage treatment and stormwater facilities. I was the only one from the Kitsap contingent that supported that. When it came to climate change, our representatives from Kitsap County were very weak on climate change, very weak on the environment, and very pro-growth. One of the issues that I would bring to them is we need better representation for Bainbridge Island, not be lumped in with the whole the county as a whole.
Thank you. Ms. Nassar?
Yes, so since being on the council in 2018, I started serving on the Kitsap Regional Coordinating Council's Plan Poll Committee. So for those of you that don't know, the Plan Poll Committee is our county's kind of regional planning board. It includes membership from our planning directors and respective planning directors from other cities. Really important conversations happen in those rooms that a lot of island residents, I would venture to guess most, don't know are happening. Important decisions about growth allocations coming down from the state through Puget Sound Regional Council are held at meetings such like that, and including the KRCC Executive Board Committee. I happened to be invited to a meeting where, with some exercise, the county representatives from other cities actually tentatively decided on growth allocations, including for Bainbridge. I was glad I was there because I was able to represent our community well. I would love to continue service on that committee and get Bainbridge Island more involved in the regional planning process.
Thank you. And now the third question for all of you. What process would you advocate to address an ethics complaint about a city council member. We'll begin with Mr. Deets.
Oops. Okay. Well, right now we do have an ethics board, and there is a process for dealing with complaints against council members. So any citizen can lodge a complaint whether it's a level 1, which is kind of a code of conduct, or a level 2, which is let's say more serious, like conflicts of interest violation. So there is a process in place here for that. I think there's some tweaks we can make to make this stronger. Let me just say, before I was on council, I was chair of the ethics board for 2 years, so I'm well familiar with the ethics board, the work they do, and generally the members in my time and currently are very dedicated professionals. It is really on us council members, I'll speak as a current council member, for us to give respect to the ethics board and let them do their work.
Thank you. Mr. Miller?
Simply just keep it open. If there's an issue, bring it out in the open. Don't do it in meetings. Don't do it behind closed doors. If something's against me and I'm a council member, then the public should know it. If I want to defend myself, I should be able to defend myself. And if an accusation is made, it should be public also. If somebody wants to step up and put their name on an accusation and make it public, then do it. That's what they should do. So it should be open to the community and open to everybody. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mandelkorn?
Thank you. Although I think that it's incredibly important that we have an ethics, some entity in charge of keeping a track of the ethics of the city council, both because we need to be held accountable for anything that happens, but also because we need to be able to be exonerated if we are falsely accused. And it's very important to make sure that the ethics complaints are not used to suppress a political opinion or an agenda that a council member is trying to get passed. So especially when it comes to development or something like that. So I personally think that like somebody who's in charge of hearings, like a hearing examiner, might be a different way to go that might be a little less politically leaning, but as long as somebody is in charge of that, I think that's what we really need.
Thank you. Mr. Peltier?
Thank you. Currently, we have 2 sets of rules in our ethics program. One is the code of conduct, and one is the code of ethics for officers. We need to get rid of the code of conduct. It's basically a civility code, and the council has the authority to enforce its own civility rules through parliamentary procedure. The code of conduct can be very political, and so I would get rid of that, and I would simply have an ethics program that's identical to the state of Washington's code of ethics for municipal officers. And I would put instead of an ethics board, and I have nothing against the ethics board, no issues with them, but I would definitely have a hearing officer is what they're called, to hear the complaints and then forward anything that they find legitimate to the hearing examiner.
Thank you. Ms. Nassar?
Yeah, so first of all, I think it's important to state that I personally think it's unfortunate that the word ethics in local government has become conflated with council member code of conduct complaints and in general council member bad behavior. Council members' ethical obligations are actually prescribed in RCW 42.23, so that's state law. I think we need an ethics program definitely in our city, but that our program not include the opportunity for folks to file complaints about interpersonal disputes and alleged bad behavior. The council has the ability to resolve those complaints and disputes in a manner that is followed by nearly all other local jurisdictions in Washington state. Ethics complaints are very serious and usually involve conflicts of interest. We need a solid program that mirrors state law and a neutral third-party hearing examiner to render expert opinions on what are very serious and potentially damaging complaints.
Thank you. Mr. DeRosalia?
Yes, I like everybody else said, we currently have an ethics program. There are two ways to go about it. One is a code of conduct violation. The other is a legitimate ethics violation. I have no problem with our current program. I think, like everything, it can be made to be better over the course of time. Also, I think that we have dedicated and well-qualified professionals serving on our ethics board. And so I think that they're qualified to hear what we're talking about. I also think that they're islanders and they serve this community. And so they are better suited to hear the problems or what may come up in our council than some random third party. There is a system in place that when it gets elevated to that level, it will go to a third party. But we also have our own board to kind of take a look at us. I have nothing to hide, and I hope I never will. And I hope that people check my behavior if it's out of line. So I have no problem with our current ethics board. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now the next question. Do you support reopening a discussion of the police station? Please first answer yes or no, and then explain your reasoning. We'll begin with Mr. Miller.
Yes, I always believe discussion is important. I think we have to look at the fact that we've already bought it, and that truthfully, some of the decisions are going to be made before I would ever be elected to the council anyway. Things are coming up shortly. But discussion is always good. The factors are now that we've spent the money to do it. What's the burden on the community if we eliminate it or if we go on with it? And if we look for something else? Those are things that have to be evaluated by where we stand now, not what we did in the past. So I would take a look at what that burden does to the taxpayers and what the decision would be from there moving forward, not looking back that we did something wrong or we did something right. Just make it from today on. That's what I would do.
Thank you. Ms. Mandelkorn?
Yes, I would absolutely want to look into that. There's possibility of an audit even from my standpoint. To my knowledge, there was a earlier vote by the public on a bond that would have supported building a new police station, and it failed 3-1. And then the council went forward with this purchase anyways, sort of getting around that. So to me, that does not seem like listening to the voters and doing what their will is and taking it back to them. So that building is costing us $9 million to my understanding, and will cost $23 million by the time it's finished with the build out. And I think that it's possible that some of that building can be used for other things, and including things that can maybe relieve the police of a little bit of their burden. That's something I would want to look into budget wise. So yes, I think it's important to look into that because I think it's what the voters asked for, and that is always what we should be doing first.
Thank you. Mr. Peltier?
Yes, I would take up the issue again. And what I would do, because we have a lot of opinions in the community about whether we're spending too much on police or not, is I would hire a reputable independent consultant who has experience in evaluating the needs of communities in regards to policing. And it's a new field now with the new climate in the country over the last year. And I would have them take a look at Bainbridge Island. What are our needs? I suspect that we don't need the Harrison facility for our police and court facility. We may be able to actually just remodel the existing police station or build something there. I don't know, but I would like for us to employ the services of a professional firm who has a reputation for being objective without any conflicts of interest. That's what I'd want to do first.
Ms. Nassar?
Yes, I definitely support. Oh, did we skip my colleague here, Councilmember Deets?
No, we're going in a rotating order each time.
Okay. Sorry, can we reset the clock? He was waving, so I just wanted to make sure.
Sorry.
No worries. Okay, I'll just wait till it starts. Thanks, Suzanne. Yes, I definitely support reopening this discussion. I've been actually a very vocal advocate for reopening the discussion. I had the pleasure of participating in a town hall event recently in May, which was a community conversation about policing, and which specifically raised some of the concerns about the city's purchase of the former Harrison Medical Building. there are a lot of concerns related to the city's purchase price. Point being is that we are slated to build a very expensive police station that's going to cost taxpayers nearly 3 times what we may have been able to build a police station for. I absolutely support putting this conversation to the community. Our city manager has recently stated that we have about a year to have this conversation, to look at alternative options. There are alternative options, and to ask the question to the community. Do we want the police station at Harrison, or do we want something else there?
Thank you. Mr. DeRosalia?
Yes, I support having a conversation about it. No, I would not support relitigating the issue again. Bainbridge Island, I fully support the new Bainbridge Island Police and Municipal Court facility and its plans to move to the retrofitted Harrison building. The city council voted and approved this measure. The city purchased the building for this specific reason, and the city has building permits ready and in hand. We can actually be going out to bid right this very second, but because the conversation is coming up again, we're not going out to bid. And so the other thing I want to bring up is no one is talking about the people who work in these buildings. No one's talking about the domestic violence person, the victim who's got to come in and literally sit feet away from the person who abused them possibly. So while we're all sitting here doing the whatever day quarterback about what should go on, there are actual people suffering with whether it be working conditions or whether it be their actual real life issue that they have to go to the court facility for. So this was decided and we should move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Deets?
Okay, thank you. My turn now, I guess. I'll say yes. And then let's just say there should be no question that we need a new police station. The current station is probably the worst for any city of our size in the state, if not beyond. Efforts to build a proper station goes back 20 years. The list of deficiencies is long. So when council voted relating to the Harrison acquisition, I was a no, because I felt we could have gotten a better deal than $8,975,000. I feel savings starts with acquisition, so we could have gotten a better price, please. However, we bought it, and that's the way it is. We own it. Moving forward, I have a responsibility to complete the work that began so long ago, and a responsibility to accomplish it in a timely and fiscally responsible manner. I recommend that we do a brief due diligence dive and examine at least 3 sites, the city-owned sites, to examine what would be the best site for the police station. Get this under a minute.
Thank you very much. The next question for everyone. If you believe the city has a role in supporting affordable workforce housing, what actions would you advocate to increase the inventory on the island? Let's begin with Ms. Mandelkorn.
First of all, when it comes to affordable housing, I believe we have a 2-part situation. One is using the term affordable housing, which is often bandied about by developers in order to get us to allow them to upzone or use tax breaks or increase density that normally would not be allowed with our zoning. So if you hear the term affordable housing, you need to check and make sure that they're actually building affordable housing at least like more than 20%, which is what we usually get, if that. When we're talking about actual affordable housing being built, what I would do is make sure that we are taking care of the people who live here, the firemen, the teachers, the people who work in our stores. Those are the people that I think, when I talk to my neighbors, we're interested in supplying with affordable housing. Would they do the best by us adding extra units, or really would that be better to give them some subsidies or some grants? Or how many units are we actually talking about for the people who we need to support and make feel welcome as a part of our community that live amongst us already?
Thank you. Mr. Peltier?
Thank you. The problem with creating workforce housing is that how do you designate it for workers? I have an affordable housing plan, and one of the issues I'd like to bring to the state legislature with an official lobbyist of the city is, how do we do that? How can we target workers for housing? My plan includes encouraging housing and new density around the ferry district in Winslow, transferring it from the conservation areas on the island. But how do we designate it for workers? I think the main thing would be to have it near Winslow, and I think that a lobbyist is essential. There's a lot of things we can do with a lobbyist in regards to affordable housing and other issues. The state is really relying on growth in building to hopefully solve the affordable housing issue, and that's not enough. They need to address issues with property taxes as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Nassar?
Yeah, I'm currently actually working with property developers who are proposing and trying to permit an affordable housing development project here on Bainbridge Island. They contacted me and raised concerns about some of our affordable housing code and an ordinance that the city council previously passed, and they were running into some obstacles and may need some legislative help to further their project. First, we need to look at our code. We need to talk to folks and figure out what the problems are. Why is our current code and our optional inclusionary zoning ordinance that's already on the book not working? And what can the council do to alleviate some of those barriers when the development that's being proposed is consistent with our land use vision and our environmental goals of sustainability? I always want to look first to existing island residents, though. I'm constantly hearing complaints that people are being pushed off this island. Island residents are my number one concern, and that's where I want to start.
Thank you. Mr. DeRosalia?
Yes, so I'm glad you brought up the question of workforce affordable housing. We are in desperate need of workforce affordable housing. The people who work to serve the people who live on Bainbridge Island rarely get to live here. They rarely get to park here without getting tickets in Winslow. And so what I can tell you is I've looked into workforce affordable housing specifically. There's ways to generate revenue for it. One of the ways would be you can peel off a portion of lodging tax for that. The city of Seattle has written that into code, and they're about to start doing that in 2022. So I just really think that we can use our police station. That area down there is a perfect vision for workforce affordable housing. It's down near all the services. It's down near the senior center. It's close to the biggest portion of transportation we have, buses, ferries. So yeah, I'm all for affordable housing. It's my #1 priority and issue, and specifically workforce affordable housing, so that we don't have to have a traffic jam every day because the people coming off and on the island to serve us.
Thank you. Mr. Deets?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, we are in a full-fledged housing crisis, Bainbridge, affordable housing crisis on Bainbridge. High prices and diminished supply have made home ownership out of reach to all but the most affluent buyers. This imbalance makes us a less vibrant and less resilient community. Addressing affordable housing is not only critical to those in need, but it's critical to all of us. I support the Affordable Housing Task Force recommendations. Came out in 2018. In the 30 seconds I have, a few items. The multifamily property tax exemption, 12 and 20-year abatements, kickstarting the accessory dwelling units program, revising our transfer of development rights program, mandatory inclusionary zoning in the ferry and high school districts, keep going, undertaking an inventory of city-owned lands to determine suitable sites, exploring land swaps with other taxing jurisdictions, and utilizing state legislation for affordable housing and property owned by religious organizations.
Thank you, Mr. Deets. And last, Mr. Miller.
It's very clear the city's really poor at doing this. And the thing we have to focus on is the land has to be in the hands of the people that can do this the best. Housing Resource Bainbridge, or other groups like that know what to do when they have the property. The most difficult thing is for them to have the piece of land. We have that option right now. We can subdivide the Suzuki property, 35% that we've already thought we could build on and 65% to conserve. We can donate that 35% parcel to the Housing Resource Bainbridge. We can donate the other 65% to the land trust. They can steward the land. We can zone that 35% parcel for AH, affordable housing, if we want to call it that. We can designate it for 26 homes maximum. We can put it for 1,400 square foot maximum, and we can give it to the Housing Resource Board and let them do a project like they have on Ferncliff. That's the way to get it done. Get the land into the organizations that can make it happen.
Thank you. Now the next question. What approach would you take when the contract with Puget Sound Energy comes up for renewal? Begin with Ron Peltier. Ron, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I lost 4 seconds. I wish I knew more about the contract with PSE. While I was on the council, we talked about this, and nobody actually told us what the contract negotiation involves. So I know that it's limited in what we can do. I would like to maximize whatever influence we can have on PSE to get them to commit to some undergrounding, to get them to commit to providing us with more renewable energy. And so I support those efforts, but I don't know a lot about the negotiating process, and I would like to know more. So I guess that's something I'm a little flat-footed on right now. I don't have a real complete answer for you, but I think we need to be planning ahead so we can get the most out of those negotiations.
Thank you. Ms. Nassar?
Yeah, so the council did kind of kickstart this conversation. I forget what year, it might have been 2019. And the reason was that we have really active, engaged citizens who are involved in this issue, who want to be proactive and start to research kind of where and how our city can have influence over PSC to help pressure PSC towards greater reliability, but also towards sourcing their energy from renewable sources. I support committee involvement. I support citizen engagement and involvement in this. I would like to elevate their role in our PSC negotiation process and rely upon them, many of whom are experts, have been following PSC, understand the issues really well, to help advise and assist the city council throughout these deliberations and this process. Right now, I believe we're waiting for the city attorney to get back on some really important legal points, and then we should probably expect to see that conversation picking up again really soon.
Thank you. Mr. DeRosalia?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, outside of us being a really good partner to PSE and trying to work together for the benefit of our community by asking and including the community in finding out what we need, I don't think that we should be, I think we should try to be a good partner. I don't think we should be peer pressuring or looking for negotiation tactics. I think we're all trending in the same direction. We're looking for renewable energy. We've had an opportunity in the past to bury some power lines. We chose not to do it. We had a partial huge grant. So I don't know that the will of the city is to bury power lines. I can't speak for that yet. We haven't kind of taken a poll of the city lately for that. But what I can say is I just want to be a good partner with PSE. I think we'll probably be doing business with them for the foreseeable future. And outside of us developing our own utility company, we need to look for ways to work together, not for ways to leverage ourselves against each other. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Deets?
Yeah, thank you. Well, the city is started its negotiations for the franchise agreement with Puget Sound Energy. And let's just say, how important is this? Our largest greenhouse gas emitter is Puget Sound Energy, the energy mix that they have. So it's incredibly important for us to get them to reduce their dirty energy load. A few things that I'd like to see with this franchise agreement, and let me just say I have some role in this, as does the Climate Change Advisory Committee, of which I'm council liaison. But some things. Basically, I want more local control of our energy with our utility as a true partner. I want to establish a green energy fund where we can have money set aside for energy efficiency and renewable energy projects right here on Bainbridge and not somewhere else. And also just, again, a cleaner energy mix. PSE, again, is the dirtiest utility in the state, and we need to change that.
Thank you. Mr. Miller?
The city shouldn't be in the business of utilities. We should be here to serve the community. We're a service organization, not a business. We should be involved and communicate with PSE. We should facilitate their work if we can. We should make sure that their work is beneficial to our community, but we need to not try to force or do ways to get them to do work on the other end of their project to benefit our needs. If we want to work on our energy consumption and what's going on, then that's an individual basis. We have to convince our community to be more aware of the electrical uses they have. I think we try to get too involved in too many areas that aren't part of what a city should be doing to serve its community. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mandelkorn?
Thank you. It sounds like what we're mostly talking about here is renewable energy and how to propel that forward as we're trying to fight climate change. And that is a passion of mine and my husband's. I do know that when we pay our power bill, that we have an option to pay a little bit more in order to support green energy, and we do that. So I don't know in what way we can incorporate something like that, but that is helpful because it shows that the citizens are supporting that, and that's the direction we want to head. And I don't know enough about how we work with PSC to make a concrete statement on how I would proceed, but I do think that as we're going into trying to create a situation where we have clean, green energy available for electric cars and maybe buses that are electric, and houses that have more a certification for green energy, that would be something that I would be pushing for. And if PSE can be involved in that, or we can assist them in any way in making that easier for people, then that would be a direction I would want to go.
Thank you. The next question, I may have to read it to you twice. It's a little bit long. Some community members have expressed concern about a sitting council making appointments to a salary commission when the latter's recommendations go into effect for the same council members. If you believe revisions to the commission's salary process are appropriate, what changes do you suggest? Do you want me to read it again? Some community members have expressed concern about a sitting council making appointments to a salary commission when those latter's recommendations go into effect for the same council members. If you believe revisions to the commission's salary process are appropriate, what changes do you suggest? Let's begin with Ms. Nassar.
Yeah, so first off, the Salary Commission is governed by state law. So the first thing I would want to do, and I am absolutely supportive of having this conversation, because there were some points, I think, really important points with merit that members of the community raised throughout the Salary Commission, recent Salary Commission process. The first place I would start is a conversation with the city attorney to find out what kinds of changes can we make? What are we allowed to do within the authority of state law? And then I would put it on an agenda and we would have that conversation. And if there are changes that we can make that create a more transparent process that kind of resolves some of the concerns that I heard raised this round, I'm absolutely open to hearing them. I think this Salary Commission process was really unfamiliar to a lot of council members. Most of us, at least personally for myself, didn't know that the new salaries would even take effect for sitting council members. So absolutely open to having that conversation and making whatever changes we feel could improve the process for the community.
Thank you. Mr. DeRosalia?
Yes, I do believe that there should be some changes to the Salary Commission. One is I think that it should not, the salary should not go into effect for the people who are currently serving on council. I just think that because people work in groups, there's huge conflicts of interest. And sometimes they show up and sometimes they don't. I think a way to remove that conflict of interest would be to not have, kind of possibly have like people who know other people or who are applying for positions that other people may be voting on council later on down the road. I just think that there's a lot to be said for how the people got picked when the actual change went into effect. And I would absolutely change some of that. So like Mayor Nassar said, I would absolutely go through the city attorney to make sure everything I did was kind of, up to the level. But yeah, I would absolutely take a look at that. That said, one of the reasons I was able to apply for city council is because we got a raise, because it's a lot of work and I think they should be compensated.
Thank you. Mr. Deets?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'll just say, to be very clear, council members had nothing to do with the decision of the Salary Commission. Yes, we did appoint the members. That was an open process like any of our committees. It was an open, any citizen could have applied and they were selected. And then they had total control. So when the announcement came for our salary, I'll just say it came as a complete surprise to me. And first thing I did is I asked the city attorney, what can we do about it? We as council. And the short answer was nothing. Now, having said that, we are still just in the conversations as long-term, what can we do? One thing that strikes me in this particular case, it was, I think there was 6 members, and I think the vote was 4-2 or something like it. It was a fairly close vote. And one thing that I think would have been appropriate is to require a super majority. So it wasn't just like a close majority. A super majority at least would have had a more stronger result.
Thank you. Mr. Miller?
When I first started thinking about the council, I didn't know the position was even paid. And then when I did finally register for the council, I found out the issue about the $3,000 raise for everybody, or the $3,000 payment. I do think this position has a lot of work. I've done a lot of time to read and get into the background and just barely touched on the amount that has to be done to be a council member. So I think it should be a paid position. The process of how the salaries were raised and how that's determined, I'm not familiar with that. So I can't really speak to what I would do differently or how it should be different. I'm just coming into this process. But again, I agree with the position being a tremendous amount of work. There's a lot that has to be researched, a lot that has to be done, a lot of information that has to be processed, a lot of time has to be put in. There should be a determination of what that's worth, and this position for all 7 members should be paid. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mandelkorn?
Well, as an artist who's been asked to perform for free because I love music multiple times, I can tell you that, although I have done it, that you get a quality of people when you pay for it. You get a larger pool of people. You don't get just elite people who can afford to work for free or for less. So in my opinion, and again, I didn't decide to run for city council for the money, so that's not what this is about. But if you have a position that's salaried high enough that a person could actually live on that, you're going to get a whole different group of people that are not just the richest or the ones who are supported by their parents or whatever the reason that you can afford to work this much, because I'll tell you what, it's a lot of work, and not really get paid for it. So as a member of this community, I highly advise that we pay our city council. I actually don't think they get paid enough, even from this 2 months that I've been working on this stuff. So I applaud all of you who have been on the council, and thank you for your service. You really work extremely hard, and I'm so I feel lucky we have you.
Thank you. Mr. Peltier? You're muted, Ron. You're on mute.
All righty, last 10 seconds. Anyhow, I was a little surprised when the decision was made to raise the salaries as much as they raised them. I do think that if you put in the time as a council member and you really work at it, that's not too much to pay people. I would support, however, after I'm elected to city council, that we have a discussion about it. It's I think the next review is it's quite a ways away. So we're not going to change anything right away, but I would support revisiting the issue because it was controversial and there are people that had a problem with it. So I would support taking another look at the process. I definitely would do that.
Thank you. And our next question. How do you think economic and population growth on the island can best be managed in light of the Growth Management Act? Let's begin with Mr. DeRosalia.
I think we can follow the Growth Management Act. I think we can try not to make up fuzzy statistics to cause fear in our community. I think we can involve scientists. I mean, what I can say is that I am not for development. What I would like is for people to not sleep on the park bench in front of City Hall because they currently do. What I would like is for people to not walk in front of 550 Madison, which is an affordable housing complex, who are homeless when there's units that could be lived in. So I'm not for growth. I am for building affordable housing. I am for a smart housing plan. And I think that people have put a lot of time and effort into the growth management plan. We've taken our comprehensive plan and modeled that against it. And so I think we should follow through on that.
Thank you. Mr. Deets?
Yeah, the Growth Management Act really requires us to concentrate our growth in our case, our designated center of Winslow, and this makes perfect sense. Winslow is where the growth should go, not elsewhere in the island, maybe some in our neighborhood centers. So why that? Why do we do that? Winslow is where the jobs are. Winslow is where the transportation hub is, the ferry and buses. Winslow is where a lot of the schools are. So you concentrate, you have smart growth in those designated centers. That is Growth Management Act, that's the countywide planning policies, and that is our comprehensive plan, and that is what we do on council. So we are focusing on how to, we're going to be doing our Winslow master plan study probably this coming year, and we'll be looking at what can we do to make Winslow more accommodating for growth, because that is where the growth needs to go, not elsewhere in rural areas on the island. So think smart, and we'll do it right.
Thank you. Mr. Miller?
I think the Growth Management Act and the Comprehensive Plan have a lot of mandates and a lot of things that are required. One of those is our environment and our resources and our aquifer and our water. So we have to take all that into account when we're doing this. Whether that we have to increase our number of houses to increase our population also is dependent on all those other resources that we have to be able to do that. It goes all the way down to the sewage treatment plants that we have. We don't have those in other centers on the island. Do we expect that we're going to be able to build septic systems to take all the growth in the other centers on the island? That's probably not going to happen. So unless we're going to work on our environmental issues first and take that in consideration and make that a big part of our growth and of our management of our growth and how it goes, that we're making a mistake. And if we just put more density into our Winslow area and to other growth centers, that's not the right solution. The right solution is to build housing that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mandelkorn?
To my knowledge, we have met our obligation for growth through the year 2050. So we don't have to grow. We can just redistribute things to take care of people who need it, like homeless people or like people who have mental health issues or people who have low incomes. There are ways that we can handle that without growing. Our island and our aquifer cannot handle, and our sewage, which dumps into Puget Sound constantly in Winslow, cannot handle any more growth, and we are not required to do it, so we should not do it.
Thank you. Mr. Peltier?
Thank you. We need to be knowledgeable and sophisticated when it comes to state and regional planning. But the first thing we need to do to navigate that planning is to better determine the island's carrying capacity. And that carrying capacity is limited. The first thing we need to do is our groundwater management plan. And that plan needs to be based on true sustainability and long-term independence. We don't need to be bringing a pipeline across Agate Pass to Bainbridge Island because they also depend on groundwater. We need to make sure our aquifers are going to sustain us in perpetuity, sustainably. So some people like to think of the Growth Management Act as the Growth Mandate Act. What we need on Bainbridge Island is we need to understand our carrying capacity, and we've neglected that. So I'm anxious to see us get started on our groundwater management plan. We also need to look at our transportation system and what its capacity is. It's up to us to decide what levels of service we want and what we want that system to look like.
Thank you. Ms. Nassar?
It's already been stated, but it is a fact that we have already zoned the island sufficient to accommodate growth through 2050. So we actually don't need to promote growth or develop policies to promote growth in order to achieve our and fulfill our obligation under the Growth Management Act. I'm really concerned, and I hear from Winslow residents as well as a Central Ward rep, about shoving all of the growth downtown. In addition to concerned about degradation of quality of life in Winslow, there's issues about sewer and capacity, issues about groundwater and our carrying capacity and our ability to provide sustainable water to our residents in years to come. I am a community first planning policy person. I think we need to, the conversation really should happen in the context of a larger planning process. But my fundamental and hard bottom line is that we don't need to focus on developing growth policies. We've already met it.
Thank you. The last question is one that is simply a yes or no answer. We'll begin with Dennis Miller. Do you think the presidential election of 2020 was fraudulent?
No,
Ms. Mandelkorn,
No.
Mr. Peltier,
No, it was not. It was anything but fraudulent.
Ms. Nassar,
No, absolutely not.
Mr. DeRosalia,
No.
and Mr. Deets.
No, not at all. It was a good election.
Again, thank you to all of you for your answers. And now for closing statements, we're going to begin with the North Ward, again in the order on the ballot. You each have a minute and a half. Let's begin with Mr. Deets.
Thank you. Thank you, League of Women's Voters. This has been a great event. Islanders, an opportunity is before you to choose your leaders. Now more than ever, Bainbridge Island needs experienced leaders who have demonstrated that they have the necessary depth of knowledge, the skills, and dedication to do the work that the people expect of them. And not least, that they have the temperament to establish effective working relationships with everyone, not just those they agree with. All these things I possess and have their track record to prove it. But you don't have to take my word for it. I encourage voters listening in to check out the Progressive Voters Guide that was recently issued by Fuse Washington. Read their analysis of the four-person race in District 7 North Ward seat. Fuse looked at the race closely, and I'll put their conclusion. We recommend Joe Deets based on the solid record and progressive values. In addition, please listen to the broad and diverse range of people on the island who support me. They include notable climate scientists, leaders in the equity movement, labor leaders, and local business owners. They include many former city council members. This broad range of support is indicative of how I've approached being your representative for the last 3+ years and what you can expect if I'm reelected. It's been truly an honor to be your city council representative. We're moving in the right direction in many areas, but so much work remains to be done, and I'd be honored to stay on council. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Miller?
it's been an interesting hour or so. Thanks to the League of Women Voters for bringing us together. I'm going to end with a quote, but first a little why this quote is important to me and why it resonates with me. For 13 years, I coached youth sports, took my kids out on the field so they could have fun with their friends and their teammates. He coached soccer, little league, baseball. Every minute, enjoyed being called Coach Dennis. It was a great time and a great way to teach a few lessons of team sports. You'll want to know that my son went on beyond my coaching years and played baseball for his high school and his college team. So that's a little bit why this quote has stuck with me for so long. I coached him as a little league player, starting being a catcher when he was age 8. Maya Angelou said, "I've learned that you shouldn't go through life with a catcher's mitt on both hands. You have to throw something back." The wonderful aspect of words for thought is we get to make our own meaning out of that. To me, it says, get involved, throw back to the community, your energy, your time, your effort, throw it back to an island and a community that Julie and I and our children have loved to be part of for 20 years. It's time for me to do more. That's simple. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mandelkorn?
Thank you so much to the League of Women Voters. This has been a fantastic evening. I'm just going to review for you all that the lens that I'm always going to be looking through if I'm elected as I address any issue is protecting our environment and our small town way of life and our aquifer. Those are my top priorities, followed swiftly by transparency in government, bringing you the information that the city has so that you don't have to go seek it out. I have several ideas for that. And also securing investment for the arts and artists. So as I've been doing a lot of research on every topic known to man regarding city council, one thing has kind of occurred to me, and that is that a lot of times we as the citizens have to go looking for information like, for example, we just built a new, front garden, and we put in some rocks in the ditch to help the water go down. And we did that maybe a month before I learned that was not what we should have done. We should have put in a rain garden, and I would have loved to have had that information. My whole neighborhood would love to have that information, but I would have had to know to go look for it. So my idea is to have neighborhood certifications or large group certifications for things such as forestry management, fire safety, water usage and wells, internet connectivity, septic systems, and aquifer replenishment, so that information can be fed to the residents, and then we can participate in making our island safer and more productive and more protected without having to seek it out on purpose. It will just be part of our lives.
Thank you. Mr. Peltier?
Thank you, League of Women Voters. I've thought a lot about what I wanted to say here tonight with my opening and closing statements, perhaps describing my platform and comparing city council records. That's important, but you can read all about it on my campaign website, peltierforcouncil.com. Instead, I'd like to close with something more universal. I hope that we can heal some of the political divide on Bainbridge Island and spend a lot less time spinning our collective wheels. I want my campaign to be about reaching out to build consensus around a shared vision, as opposed to consuming time and energy fighting over power and influence. I sincerely believe that all the candidates here tonight and our supporters care deeply about Bainbridge Island. Win or lose, let's make that the centerpiece of what we're about. Let's listen to each other and work together to secure a future for Bainbridge Island that we can be proud of. If we can help do that, all of us will be winners during this campaign season.
Thank you, Ms. Next, we'll do the Central Ward, beginning with Ms. Nassar.
Dearest members of the public, when making your decision, I ask you to keep in mind two things. Number one, look to see who of the candidates is knowledgeable about the issues the island cares about, especially taking care to study which of those candidates understands local land use and planning. And number two, and maybe more importantly, look to see who has an unwavering and unyielding commitment to his or her values, and look to see also who has the requisite integrity and strength of character to stand up to hostile opposition to progressive proposals that are consistent with our island's vision for the future. Look to see who's going to go above and beyond and fight for you. Because being on the council isn't just about voting. It's about being a proactive member of a legislative team. It's about anticipating the island's needs so that we are ahead of the issues, not behind them. It's about being a committed, collaborative presence who understands the inner workings of city government and knows how to effectively maneuver through the municipal process. It's about putting islanders first. My voting record and success on the council and advocating for our comp plan and islanders demonstrates that I am that candidate. I love this island. I love this job. Please visit my website, reelectrasham.com, to learn more. And please do not hesitate to reach out to me with questions, to set up a time to meet, or just to say hello. Thank you very much, Bainbridge Island.
Thank you very much. I'd now like to read Mr. Murawaki's closing statement on his behalf. Thank you again to the League of Women Voters for hosting tonight's forum. Unfortunately, I can't sum up any comments, responses, or answers directly based on what you may have heard this evening. What I can tell you is that if I am elected, I will work very hard to advance the principles that you have identified through the comprehensive plan, including supporting affordable housing, protecting our environment, and championing diversity in all forms. But the truth is, many problems are complex. Some don't have easy solutions. Some require compromise. Some may be so critical that compromise might be totally out of the question. I will listen to each and every one of you who contact me. I will respectfully listen to all sides of an issue. I can promise that you will know what I'm thinking, you will know what I am trying to do, and you will know why. And in every case, I will be guided by what is best for Bainbridge Island, not by hidden agendas, self-interests, or petty politics. Most of all, I pledge to elevate the discussion and to provide our community with a renewed reason to trust the judgment of their elected representatives. I look forward to earning your vote and have you place your trust in me. Thank you.
Excuse me, Anita,
Yes,
is it Sal's turn for closing statement?
my apologies if I did that. Please, Sal,
It's all right.
proceed.
All right. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for facilitating this forum. I hope I was able to use my time to tell you who I have been in my community, and through that paint a picture of why I believe I'm the best person for this particular role. In the 20+ years as an active resident, long-term business owner, volunteer, and community leader, I've engaged with thousands of island residents, businesses, organization leaders, departments, chiefs, board members, parents, youth, elected officials, and city staff. Those experiences, combined with the spending of thousands of hours studying, covering, and working for the city of Bainbridge Island, qualify me to be the next city council member for the Central Ward District 5. Voters should choose me over my opponents because I have put the betterment of the island and its inhabitants over my self-interest for more than 20 years. I'm a proven servant leader that actively works to make Bainbridge better from the inside out. I will hold myself, my peers, and the entire city staff accountable while helping to create a positive changes we need in our city government. Some 2+ years ago, I created an island-focused news show dedicated to illuminating the issues most important to our community. More than 500 episodes and 100,000 views of Wake Up Bainbridge later give me the confidence that few residents have paid more attention and been more involved with the city of Bainbridge Island than myself. So I'll take this last few seconds to say thank you so much. I truly appreciate what the League does. I support everything you do. And I hope I was able to tell the people who are listening whether they're going to vote for me or not, who I am. And salforcouncil.com. Thank you.
Now, thank you to each of our candidates. Voters, hopefully this forum has helped you choose a candidate. Ballots for the August 3rd primary election will be mailed out by this Friday, July 16th, so look for them later this week. The League is encouraging voters to vote early and return their ballots as soon as possible, either to the ballot drop box near the Bainbridge School District Administration Building or by mail, but we suggest you mail at least a week ahead of Election Day. The earlier the better to ensure all votes are counted. Again, this forum has been recorded by both the League and Bremerton Kitsap Access TV and will be available to view on Channel 12 on Comcast and Channel 3 on Wave. Perhaps you can share this information with friends and neighbors who were unable to attend this evening's forum. My thanks to our candidates for participating in our forum this evening, and thank you to each of our audience members for attending. Have a safe and pleasant evening. Good night.
Thank you.